9.6. Shanadu AS purchased a new machine on October 1st, 2020 at a cost of 96,000 euros. The company estimated that the machine will have a residual value of 12,000 euros. The machine is expected to be used for 10,000 working hours during its 5-year life. Instructions: compute the depreciation expense under the following methods for the year indicated. A straight line for 2020. Well, all of the depreciation methods have a formula, right? So over here, I'm going to write the formula for the straight line method. So over here, I'm just going to write depreciation straight line. So it's just the cost minus the salvage value or residual value, both of these mean the same thing, divided by the useful life of the machine or equipment that you are dealing with. So this is the formula for the straight line depreciation. So over here, if we take a look, we are going to have the cost of the machine, which was 96,000 euros, minus the residual or salvage value, which is 12,000 euros, divided by the useful life of the machine, which is 5 years. And that will give us that will give us 16,800. Yeah. So in theory, letter A would be done, right? But something important for this exercise is that there is a catch, because they purchased the machine on October 1st of 2020, and we want to calculate the depreciation of the whole year of 2020. But the thing is that we actually don't have a full year, right? We just have from October until December. Then you might think, okay, October, November, December, just 2 months, right? Actually, this is not the case. Why is that? I'm going to make a timeline here for you to understand better. We bought the machine on October 1st of 2020, right? So we have to calculate the depreciation until the end of the year 2020. So it would have October, November, and December, right? Yeah. But since we bought it on October 1st, we have to count November 1st and December 1st. But what about this time here? From December 1st to December 31st. Well, this is actually exactly 1 month, right? So from October 1st to December, probably December 31st, we actually have 3 months that have passed. So this value is the value for the full year of 2020 if we had bought the machine on January 1st. This is not the case. So the depreciation for 2020 under the straight line method would be the value of the full year, but times 3 divided by 12, because 3 months have passed. That is 4,200 euros. B. Calculate the depreciation under the units of activity method for 2020, assuming the machine usage was 1,700 hours. This is a different method, but you see, it's again for 2020. So whatever value that we get, we're also going to have to multiply it by 3 divided by 12. So let's not forget that. The formula for the depreciation under the units of activity method, it's similar to the straight line, but in this case, we have to consider how many units we have used, right? So we're going to have the cost minus the salvage value, just like the previous one, but we're going to divide that not by the useful life, but by the total units usable. So, and these units might vary. You might have miles, you might have kilometers, you might have different kinds of units. Each case is a different case, multiplied by the number of units actually used. This is the formula that we're going to be using now. Okay. So the depreciation under the units of activity method will be the cost minus the salvage value, that will be 96,000 minus 12,000 divided by 10,000 working hours. Okay, so it will be 96,000 minus 12,000 divided by 10,000 times the mileage that was actually used in the year 2020. Here they said that for 2020 it was 1,700 hours. That gives us 14,280. But again, one more time, we did not buy this on January 1st. We bought it on October. So we're also going to have to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to multiply this number by 3 divided by 12. And that gives us 3,570. This is the depreciation for 2020 under the units of activity method. C. Declining balance using double the straight line rate for 2020 and 2021. Okay, sometimes here they said using double the straight rate, but sometimes they might not include this. They're just going to say declining balance. If they don't say anything, that means that you're doubling. You're going to multiply by 2 the straight line rate, okay? It's just that they might include this. If they include this, then that's better. But if they don't include it, then you still have to know that that just means that they want us to multiply the straight line rate by 2. Okay, so the first thing that we need to know is what is a straight line rate. There's also a formula for that, and that is the rate equals the useful life, and it's actually 1 divided by the useful life. So originally our useful life was 5 years, so we're going to divide 1 by 5, and that gives us 0.20, right? Yeah, that is 0.20. For the declining balance rate, it's just going to be the straight line rate times 2. So in our case, it was originally 0.20, 20% times 2. We are going to have 40% rate of depreciation per year. Okay, so now we have the rate. They're asking us to actually calculate the depreciation under the straight line rate, under the declining balance method for 2020 and 2021. Every time you're dealing with declining balance, I really recommend you to make a table, even if they don't ask you to make a table. Because first, it's very easy for you to get lost, personal experience. And second, they might ask questions about specific numbers, for example, the depreciation expense of 1 year or the accumulated depreciation of 2 years together. If you don't make a table, it's going to be very hard for you to figure out those numbers. So this table that I'm making here has 6 spots. The first thing that we have is the year. Then we're going to have the beginning balance, followed by the rate, which is the declining rate, and then we are going to have the depreciation expense, followed by the accumulated depreciation. Don't write it like me. You can write the full name, because apparently the tablet is very sensitive. And here you're gonna have the ending balance. Okay, this table is a little bit different from the straight line table that you would make, so just make sure that you pay attention to that. Okay, so the first year was 2020, and it was a 5-year depreciation, right? 5-year. So here they just asked 2020 and 2021, but I'm actually going to show you the full 5 years because I want to show you something at the end. Okay. All right, so what is our beginning balance? Since this is the first year, we actually, like at the beginning of 2020, we haven't accumulated any depreciation. So the beginning balance is just going to be the cost that you paid to acquire this machine. What was that? It was a machine, right? Okay, the price that you paid to get this machine was over here 96,000. Okay, so our beginning balance is going to be 96,000. The rate is going to be the same for all of the years, so I'm just going to go ahead and write the rate for all of them. Okay, so depreciation expense is just the beginning balance times the rate. Okay, over here, in theory, you would put 38,400. But again, we have to be careful with the year 2020. Why is that? Because it was not a full year depreciation. We only had 3 months that have passed, right? So over here, I'm going to make a little side note that in theory, it would be 96,000 times 40, and that equals 38,400. But again, just like we did it before, we actually have to multiply this number by 25, which is 3 divided by 12.25. That is 9,600. So the first depreciation, and this is the only depreciation that will look like this, okay? Because the rest of them, they're all full year depreciations. It's actually 9,600, and this number comes from here. Okay. The accumulated depreciation is all the depreciation together added up until this point. In this case, we just have one. Okay, the ending balance is always the beginning balance minus the depreciation expense of that particular year. In this case, since they are the same, it doesn't matter, but in the future, it will matter. You will see why in a minute. That is 86,400. The ending balance of the year 2020, it is the beginning balance of the year 2021, right? Because this is like the value that has that is on your statement at the end of the year 2020. So that means that on January 1st, this is going to be the value that will be present on your beginning balance. Okay, now multiply that by 40. That gives us 34,560. Accumulated depreciation, we are going to add this number plus this number to see how much depreciation we have accumulated until this point. That is 44,160. Yeah, over here, ending balance, beginning balance minus the depreciation expense of that particular year. If you subtract this one, it's going to be wrong. So you have to get this number minus this number because we're calculating for the year of 2021. Same thing, that is the beginning balance of the next year. Multiply by 40. In theory, we could have stopped because the exercise only asks for 21 for the years 2020 and 21, but just stay with me because I want to show you something, okay? So the accumulated depreciation, right? All of the numbers together. $64,896. Ending balance, this minus this. If you multiply this by this, you're gonna get a broken number, so I'm just gonna round it up to 12,442 for us to be easier for us to calculate it. Another way for you to calculate the accumulated depreciation, it's either you can add all of these up, all of these numbers here, or you can just add the last number with this one, right? Because remember that this number is just the sum of all of this. So you can just add this this number with this number. It will be faster. That is 18,662. And now over here we are at the final year, the year of 2024. This year is slightly different. Why is that? Because in the last year, remember that this machine is not going to be depreciated until 0. It's going to be depreciated until 12,000, which means that even after all of the depreciation has happened, I have to have a final value of 12,000, which means that my final ending balance has to be necessarily 12,000. But if we take a look over here, for this to be 12,000, what does that mean? That means that this number over here has to be what? The beginning balance, the cost of the machine was 96,000. If you do 96,000 minus 11,000, you would get, in theory, 84,000. And this is the number that you actually need, right? You need the accumulated depreciation to be 84,000 in order for you to get a 12,000. But if you calculate the depreciation for this year, you might not necessarily get that. Why is that? Because this is the number that we have, right? So if we do 18,662 times 40%, over here, you would get 7,465. I'm rounding it up. If you add this number with this number, just like we did it before, you would actually get 84,803. And this is different from what we need, right? We need 84,000 only. This is more than what we need. So the last year of the declining balance, depreciation expense, it's going to be different. And this is what I wanted to show you. So over here, this necessarily has to be 84,000, correct? So what we actually need to know is this depreciation expense here of this year. How much would this have to be in order for us to get this 84,000 and consequently get this 12,000? Well, we can calculate it. How do we do that? This depreciation expense of this year, remember that what do we do here to get the accumulated depreciation? It was either you add all of these up, like I said, or you can add the previous value with the depreciation expense of this year to get this value, right? So the logic is the same. This plus this would have to equal this. So we can just use algebra. We can say that, let me invert the order to be easier for you. 77,338 plus this depreciation expense that we want to know has to be equal to 84,000. So we can just minus the original value and we get we get 6,662. So this value would have to be necessarily 6,662. And this comes from over here. And just one extra detail. I have this table here with a lot of numbers, right? They actually just asked the depreciation expense of 2020 and 2021. So after you do this table, just make sure to indicate that the depreciation expense for the year 2020 would be 9,600 and for the year 21 would be 34,560.